Previously, as Suho tried to stop the dungeon break with his newfound power, shadow creation, the scene cut to a dark silhouette. It was Cha Hai-in. Beside her loomed an enormous dragon-shaped shadow, blotting out the clouds as it coiled across the sky like smoke. The scene shifts back to Korea, where the dungeon break has thrown the city into chaos. Smoke hangs thick in the air, and destruction stretches across every street. Out of nowhere, a monster lunges forward, but Suho meets it mid-charge, driving a powerful kick into its abdomen and dropping it instantly. Another creature emerges from the haze. Suho moves before it can react, his heel snapping across its face. A third monster tries to flank him, but Suho's strike lands cleanly, his boot crushing into its jaw. Blood spills from the creature's mouth as it collapses, lifeless, onto the shattered pavement. Silence follows. Suho stands still for a moment, surprised by how effortless it felt. Each enemy had fallen with a single blow. The realization unsettles him. He wonders just how much his strength has grown, and whether he has even grasped its limits yet. Before he can think further, movement catches his eye. Down the street, a squad of hunters is pushing the invading monsters back with impressive coordination. Their blades arc through the smoky air, while bursts of magic explode beside them, almost like a choreographed routine. They seem lighter, faster, more confident than before, and Suho recognizes why. The black equipment they're wearing, shadow-crafted gear, is amplifying their abilities. Watching them fight, Suho allows himself a faint smile. They're no longer struggling, they're holding the line like veterans. Without drawing attention, Suho raises his right hand and quietly triggers a command. The shadows respond, rippling outward like a silent wave. His mind shifts inward as the skill activates. Ever since his class advancement, he has been able to reconstruct equipment from the remnants stored inside his shadow soldiers. By pulling those fragments into his mind, he can break them down, reshape them, and reforge them into whatever armor or weapon he envisions, as long as he understands the material well enough. He approaches the corpse of the large monster he defeated earlier. Darkness crawls across its body as the process begins. Suho studies the shifting shapes, evaluating. He knows the result depends entirely on how clearly he can picture the item. The shoulder guard and belt had turned out well because he imagined them precisely. The gauntlet, however, had been forced. Proof that the system can't be tricked. The material must be respected if he wants higher-grade items. A new interface window appears. Now he can finally store shadow-crafted equipment. It's limited to gear only, but even that changes everything. Another detail stands out. Only heroic-grade items can form contracts. His class title, White Shadow, still feels mysterious, though it clearly hints at something beyond ordinary shadow power. His thoughts scatter when the ground trembles. A new wave of monsters rushes toward him, eyes burning with rage. Suho shifts into stance, calm and ready, until a sudden heavy impact echoes behind him. Someone else arrives. A figure arcs through the air like a streak and slams down onto a massive beast, crushing it beneath his boots. The shockwave ripples outward, rattling debris across the battlefield. Suho turns. The man rises from the crater, composed and confident. It's Park Dojin, as several monsters break from the horde and surround him. Energy gathers in Dojin's hand. Without hesitation, he unleashes his ability. Power surges down his arm, and with one sweeping motion, the creatures disintegrate where they stand. The hunters nearby stare in stunned silence. Even Suho watches quietly, taking in the scale of Dojin's strength. The battlefield is littered with corpses, the metallic tang of blood lingering in the air. When Suho's gaze meets Dojin's, neither man shows hostility, only a calm, unreadable focus. Yet something about Dojin's ease makes Suho uneasy. The perspective shifts to President Wu's office. Live footage of the dungeon break plays across the screen, capturing both Suho and Park Dojin in the middle of the chaos. Yu Jin-ho, standing in front of the television, can't hold back his emotions. Tears run down his cheeks as he stares at the broadcast, overwhelmed simply knowing Suho is alive. Beside him, Wu Jinchul sits quietly, relieved but composed. A phone buzzes. Jinchul answers, and Choi Jong-in's urgent voice comes through first. The masked fighter on screen, he explains, is none other than Sung Suho. Before Jinchul can respond, Lim Taiju joins the conversation while sprinting across rooftops. He confirms he has seen Suho before and is already heading toward the site, intending to place him under arrest. Jinchul urges caution, insisting there's still no conclusive proof Suho has done anything illegal. Taiju pushes back, suspicious of the mask and convinced Suho is tied to the distribution of the dangerous star powder, and possibly even the death of Lee Min-sung. Choi Jang-in cuts in calmly. He doesn't believe Suho is a villain, but he agrees that bringing him into the Hunter Association is necessary. He also reveals Suho's connection as the nephew of Yoo Jin-ho, strengthening the link to the association's leadership. More than anything, he says, he still trusts Jinchul's sense of justice and hopes that judgment will guide what happens next. Jinchul falls silent, thoughts racing as the situation grows more complicated. Back on the battlefield, Park Dojin finishes his call with a steady, controlled voice. The guildmaster had confirmed it. Sung Suho was standing right in front of him. Suho studies Dojin carefully. He knows the name, the newly promoted S rank. Yet something about the way Dojin smiles at him feels unsettling. When the call ends, Dojin turns back with the same unreadable expression and delivers his orders. The Reaper Guild wants Suho escorted to the Hunter Association. Suho immediately understands the implication. This isn't a recruitment invitation, it's an investigation. Dojin explains the situation with cold clarity. Suho is now officially listed as a suspect, tied to the death of Vice Guild Master Lee Min-sung, and possibly connected to the spread of star powder. The accusations land heavily. Suho hadn't expected to hear the word wanted applied to himself. Nearby hunters react instantly. They step forward in protest, insisting there must be a mistake. Suho had just saved their lives. Suho gently stops them with a raised hand. He thanks them, but agrees to cooperate. He had intended to visit the association anyway. Dojin accepts the decision. As Suho prepares to leave, he pauses and retrieves the shadow gear he loaned out. The equipment dissolves into darkness and sinks back into him, stored neatly within his newly awakened shadow inventory. Dojin watches in silence. The more he observes Suho, the clearer it becomes. Something profound has changed. His presence feels sharper, more refined, almost evolved. They walk together through the ruined streets, the storm of battle fading behind them. The tension between them is quiet but heavy. Park remains outwardly calm while his mind works nonstop. Staying close to Suho feels necessary, both to understand him and to anticipate what comes next. Their stride is broken by the sudden chime of phones going off at once. An emergency alert flashes across every screen. There has been a mass breakout at Jisen Correction Facility. Hundreds of awakened inmates, boosted by illegal drugs, are now loose. The word Stardust appears, and Suho freezes. Every memory tied to star powder surges back at once. Dojin notices the change immediately. Suho intends to go. Suho's decision is simple and unwavering. If the escaped inmates are using star powder, ordinary hunters won't be able to contain them. He's seen firsthand what that substance does to people. Dojin argues the logical path. Reinforcements are already being mobilized. Running off now will only deepen the suspicion surrounding Suho, but even as he says it, he knows Suho won't back down. A moment of silence passes. Then Dojin exhales slowly and accepts the inevitable. He'll report that he tried to stop him. Suho promises he will still report to the Hunter Association afterward, then disappears, leaping across rooftops like a moving shadow, racing toward the outbreak. Dojin remains where he stands, watching the faint silhouette vanish into the distance. A subtle smile forms. This, he thinks, is the perfect chance to see how much Sung Suho has truly changed. The story shifts to Jisan Correction Facility. Inmates clash wildly across the grounds. Some fight each other, some lie unconscious, and others simply try to escape in the chaos. A massive portion of the outer barrier has collapsed. Smoke drifts through the shattered yard, and the air is filled with the sounds of impact, shouting, and destruction. From atop a mound of debris, a man stands above the rest, calm, bitter, and commanding. He mocks the system that once held them, reminding everyone that mana stones were implanted into their necks as a way to control, or kill them if necessary. The crowd of awakened prisoners listens, resentment simmering just beneath the surface. He raises his voice. Ever since the cataclysm, they had simply used the powers they were given, and the Hunter Association answered by locking them away and branding them criminals. Now, he declares, it is time to strike back. A roar spreads across the yard. From low-rank fighters to once elite awakeners, anger that had built up for years finally spills out. With a raised fist, he gives the final signal. This prison isn't just breaking. It's becoming a full-scale dungeon-style revolt. The mastermind behind it stands revealed. Hwang Dong-suk. Meanwhile, emergency broadcasts echo through the city. Civilians are ordered to evacuate, leaving streets eerily empty while sirens wail in the distance. But inside one quiet apartment, something far more sinister unfolds. The front door begins to melt, as if eaten away from the inside. A glowing hand punches through, unlocks the latch, and 3 escaped prisoners step into the room. They move as if they already own the place. The first prisoner, calm and focused, inspects the apartment carefully. The others immediately start searching for clothes, tossing aside their uniforms and replacing them with anything they can find. One of them hesitates, worried that going against the association means going up against A rankers and even S ranks. But their leader silences that doubt by revealing a pulsing shard, a star fragment. He claims it was provided directly by Dong-suk's group. Proof, he says, that the association fears what ordinary awakeners might become if they all had access to power like this. With hope and greed outweighing fear, the hesitation fades. Soon the group's mood shifts into reckless celebration. They laugh, even discovering an expensive bottle of whiskey hidden away. But they miss the most important thing in the room, a terrified boy hiding in a low cabinet. Frozen in fear, he clutches his phone, trying to send a message for help. Just before he finishes, a shadow falls across him. The leader crouches down, smiling coldly as he discovers the child. Elsewhere, the city is engulfed in flames. Explosions echo. Hunters and fugitives clash in the streets. And far above it all, Hwang Dong-suk stands atop a high-rise. Admiring the destruction like the conductor of a twisted symphony, he revels in the fact that one signal was all it took to plunge everything into chaos. A man joins him on the rooftop, Kang Tae-sik, calm, direct, and clearly uninterested in Dong-suk's theatrics. He reminds Dong-suk that the riots have already bought enough time. They should move. Dong-suk snaps back, irritated that someone beneath him dares to speak so casually. But Tae-sik doesn't back down. He isn't there out of loyalty, only to retrieve Dong-suk on behalf of his younger brother. Killing him would be easy, but the warning he received before the breakout still rings in his mind. Bring him back alive, no matter what. The moment stretches between them. Pride, anger, and obligation collide. Eventually, Tae-sik swallows his frustration. For now, he'll play guide and keep the situation from spiraling further. Another rooftop had been converted into a temporary landing zone. The helicopter touched down with a shuddering screech, its side door sliding open. Woo Jin-chul stepped out first, adjusting the armor strapped across his chest. Choi Jong-in followed moments later, his expression calm despite the chaos unfolding below. It had been a long time since the two had fought together. The memory of the cataclysm lingered between them, a reminder of just how serious situations like this could become. Jin-chul's tone was tense. Standing back while civilians suffered was not an option. Jong-in asked about the restraints the inmates had been wearing, but the answer was grim. The control devices had been destroyed, and the prison's administration wing, supposedly protected by A-rank hunters, had been wiped out. Whoever orchestrated this didn't stop there. Hunters sent to respond had also been attacked, leaving several in critical condition. The weight of that information settled heavily. If the admin center fell that easily, then someone powerful had been moving behind the scenes, especially now that star fragments were involved. A quiet voice cut through the smoke as another figure joined them. Lim Tae-ju arrived without ceremony, confirming what many had already begun to suspect. This wasn't random violence, it was coordinated. Someone was directing everything from the shadows. Woo Jin-chul acknowledged him, relieved to have another capable hunter present. They would need every ally they had. But Taiju's expression darkened further as he delivered another update. Sung Suho had declined the association's summons and instead was heading straight to Jisan prison. The name alone froze Jin Chul in place. Lim Taeju stood before the gathered hunters, stating plainly that Jisan had fallen to escaped inmates, many empowered by star fragments. If Suho, already under investigation for ties to Star Powder, willingly walked into that environment, then his intentions needed to be questioned. He reminded them that none of this began today. Ever since Suho first appeared wearing that black mask, mysteries had followed him. Now, Taiju argued, the pattern was clear. Lee Min-sung's death had not been a tragic accident. It had been a calculated move. Every action since then seemed designed to erase Suho's trail and bury evidence linking him to Star Powder distribution. In Taiju's view, Suho had concealed both his true rank and his real power, the kind of deception that turned a hunter into a threat. He officially labeled Suho a high-risk rogue, a villain who needed to be brought down. It was the reason he had personally volunteered. That was when Woo Jin-chul finally spoke up. There was no proof that Suho had gone to Jisan to cause harm. For all they knew, he might be trying to prevent further disaster. But before that possibility could take hold, Choi Jong-in reminded the room that Suho had willingly hidden something as fundamental as his awakening rank. And trust in a crisis like this was something they could not afford lightly. Jin-chul turned toward him in disbelief, struggling to accept that even Jong-in doubted Suho. Standing apart from the arguments, Park Do-jin watched quietly. His arms stayed folded, his expression unreadable, but his thoughts were racing. Taking on S-rank hunters now would be reckless. Still, Suho must have known refusing the association would lead to trouble. He thought back to the deeper issue poisoning the world, the spread of Star Powder. Declaring it illegal hadn't slowed it. Instead, it had evolved into something stronger, the Star Fragment. And even understanding the risks, hunters continued to chase its power. From his vantage point, Dojin decided to observe a little longer. The battlefield was changing, and sooner or later, Sung Suho would appear. The perspective shifts to Sung Suho, sprinting through a tightly packed forest. Branches snapped around him and leaves scattered as he forced his body forward. His lungs burned, but he refused to slow down. Even with beast possession boosting his strength, the terrain was thicker than expected. Every step demanded more effort than the last. He spared a glance to his side, silently urging Gray to endure a little longer. Breaking through the final line of trees, Suho launched himself into open space. The city stretched ahead, drowned in smoke and chaos. Explosions echoed in the distance. Heat shimmered over rooftops. It looked less like civilization and more like a battlefield torn apart overnight. Landing near the outskirts, he paused just long enough to listen. The sounds sharpened through his enhanced senses. Voices, footsteps, panic, and then the pleading cries of people on the brink of death. He realized what the borrowed beast instinct was doing. It wasn't just sharpening his reflexes. It was forcing him to hear the fear of everyone nearby. The desperation cut straight into him. There was no time to hesitate. He bolted forward again, vaulting across ledges and rooftops, pushing himself faster with every step. Standing still meant more people dying, and he couldn't allow that. Dropping from a roof into a narrow alley, the lingering effects of beast possession faded. His landing was steady, but his breathing turned ragged, sweat sliding down his face. Ahead, the sight he'd feared came into view. Escaped prisoners surrounding terrified civilians. Blood streaked the pavement. Their expressions weren't just cruel, they were ravenous. One prisoner finally noticed Suho and laughed as if the situation were amusing. Others joined in, mocking him, assuming he was nothing more than another hunter in over his head. Suho knelt beside Gray, quietly acknowledging his effort, then rose, expression hardening. The taunts continued, but before the men could react, Suho vanished from their sight and reappeared in motion. His strike connected with the closest inmate. Silence followed. The remaining prisoners froze, unable to process what had just happened. Suho stood over the fallen man, calm and merciless. The ones who escaped had been given a chance. They could have run, disappeared, started over. Instead, they chose to hunt the weak. Mana surged around him, thickening the air. Shadows collected at his feet like something alive, responding to his intent. The atmosphere turned suffocating, forcing the prisoners to take an involuntary step back. He made the situation brutally clear in his mind. There would be no long arguments, no negotiations. The people in front of him had already made their decision, and now he would make his. Anyone who resisted would be crushed. Anyone smart enough to surrender would wake up later. Either way, the fighting would end here. The memory rose without warning. A younger Sung Suho sat beside his grandfather at a quiet fishing pond, his attention drifting from the water to the man's arms. Pale lines and rough scars crossed the old skin. Curious, the boy finally asked how he had gotten them. His grandfather simply reeled in the line first, letting the silverfish break the surface before answering. To him, those marks weren't wounds. They were reminders. Each one came from a moment when he stepped in, because nobody else would. A burning house, a violent confrontation, lives that would have ended if he hadn't moved first. He admitted he had never been fearless. It was just that his body always reacted faster than his fear. The peaceful scene faded. Back in the present, Suho stood over an unconscious criminal, while the others slowly fanned out, clutching pipes and knives. His presence alone pressed against them like invisible weight. He gave them a final ultimatum: surrender and fall unconscious, or push forward and face death. Some hesitated. Others convinced themselves he had to be a high-rank hunter, and then dismissed the fear. That was when one prisoner revealed their advantage, a shard shimmering with corrupt light. The rest followed, swallowing the fragments without hesitation. Power flooded their bodies, veins glowing, muscles swelling, confidence quickly turning into arrogance. They believed they could crush even elite hunters. Suho's expression darkened, and then the voice returned. In the back of his mind, the sneering echo of Li Min's song resurfaced, taunting him. The phantom accused him of cowardice, insisting that hesitation only meant more deaths. If Suho truly had power, then he should use it ruthlessly, just as he once had. A cold calm washed over Suho. His heel came down, crushing the skull of the man beneath him. Rage streaked across the remaining prisoners, and they charged. The first lunged low. Suho caught his wrist and snapped it with effortless precision, then used the fallen blade in quick, merciless slashes that the man never saw coming. Another tried to retreat amid thought, shocked that the star fragment still left him slower than his opponent. Suho's punch answered him. Bone shattered, and the man hit the wall hard enough to shake loose dust. Two more attacked together, launching like predators, but the shadows around Suho twisted before they ever reached him. Black spikes erupted upward, impaling them mid-air. They fell instantly, the alley painted in silent, spreading red. When the last body went still, the blood scent lingered, and the phantom of Min Sung materialized once more inside Suho's consciousness. The apparition spoke almost lightly at first, then with harsh judgment. Suho could have subdued them, but instead had chosen lethal force. If he killed humans as easily as beasts, then how different was he from the monsters he fought? The ghost's laughter faded. Suho's face remained unchanged. From the darkness at his side, Baru emerged, concerned. He asked whether everything truly was all right. Suho's answer carried a colder clarity now. He had come to save civilians, yes, but what he witnessed only fueled his frustration. With the apostle of Yttrium looming, humanity should have been united. Instead, infighting and drugs were tearing everything apart. Letting this chaos continue, he thought, would only drag his father down with it. So he made a choice. He would stop hiding. Hunters, descendants of monarchs, even reformed criminals. Anyone capable of resisting the looming threat would be brought together under his leadership. Items, beasts, allies, whatever it took. His eyes glowed with deep violet resolve. Baru recognized the intent and quietly asked if Suho truly meant to make the world kneel. Suho's reply was simpler. He wanted comrades. But first, he would clear the city and gather strength. He needed numbers. He needed order. He lifted his hand, shadows stirring like wind-touched water. Power surged, heavy and commanding, as the words formed silently within him. He called the fallen to rise. The city burned in chaos. Down the ruined road, a sleek luxury car cut through the smoke and silence, its engine smooth, almost calm against the destruction around it. That calm shattered in an instant. A roaring sphere of fire streaked through the air, tearing space around it as it closed in. The blast smashed into the car's side, detonating with a violent flare. Glass and metal exploded outward, scattering across the street while the vehicle twisted under the heat. High above on a nearby rooftop, the same criminals who had raided an apartment earlier watched like predators surveying prey. One of them leaned forward, amused at the sight of the burning wreck, joking cruelly about anyone foolish enough to drive through a war-torn city. But things below didn't play out the way they expected. Through the crackling blaze, a steady male voice rose from inside the wreck. There was no fear, only composed concern as he checked whether Miho was unharmed. A large hand then seized the damaged driver's door and ripped it free as if it weighed nothing. Studying the ruined panel with dry annoyance, he remarked that there was no chance of getting compensation from attackers like these. With effortless strength, he spun and flung the door toward the rooftop. It sliced upward through the night, slamming against the building's edge with a deafening clang before bouncing high into the air. The criminals recoiled. Two figures emerged from the burning vehicle, pushing aside sparks and smoke as if the fire were no more than a nuisance. They walked calmly, side by side, unhurried. The man adjusted his tie with quiet irritation, muttering about the disaster ruining their family outing. Beside him, the woman's expression hardened. Annoyance replaced fear. The woman was Beck Miho, Vice Guildmaster of the White Tiger Guild. The man beside her, composed, authoritative, was Beck Yunho, the guild's leader. He straightened, resolved to end things fast before they became any worse. Moments later, the rooftop ambushers lay sprawled across the ground, unconscious and beaten into silence. In the aftermath, Yunho casually asked Miho how many inmates had escaped. She checked her phone and replied calmly, around 500. He sighed, rubbing his neck with mild frustration, half joking that they would likely be scolded for arriving late to their family gathering. Miho's expression tightened. The Hunter Association chairman was already on the way with 3 S-rank hunters, scheduled to arrive within 10 minutes. There were also rumors that Sung Suho, suspected of distributing the illicit star powder, might be in the area. The name made Yunho pause. It sounded familiar, troublingly so. Then his focus hardened. Whatever else happened, civilians came first. The rescue would begin immediately. Miho smiled faintly, reminded of the days when Yunho would charge into burning buildings without hesitation back when he worked as a firefighter. Before he could reply, his attention snapped elsewhere. Something moved in the distance. Figures lurking in the shadows of a nearby building. A cold unease crept in. He asked if there had been any reports of a dungeon break. Miho answered instantly, none. That only deepened his confusion. The creature he saw didn't resemble anything human, and didn't belong in this world at all. Elsewhere in the city, panic had already taken root. A woman stood frozen, trembling as a wounded hunter struggled to stay upright in front of her. His face had gone pale, breath shallow, yet he forced himself to shield her until the very end. With what little strength remained, he urged her to flee, then collapsed as 2 escaped inmates closed in. Blood spread beneath his body like a dark pool, stretching across the road. The criminals hovered over him with cruel amusement. One mocked the man for holding out so long just to protect someone else, while the other toyed with his sword, making jokes about romance in the middle of chaos. The woman knelt beside the fallen hunter, tears streaming as she gently shut his eyes. She whispered his name, Hyun, grief tightening in her throat. Her sorrow was abruptly cut short when one of the inmates snapped at her to stop crying and lunged forward, eyes burning red with bloodlust. But death didn't arrive. A single word rolled through the air like thunder, a command that bent shadows to its will. The fallen hunter's darkness stirred, rising from the ground and reshaping into a towering soldier of pitch-black armor. It stepped between the woman and the blade, halting the strike with raw force. Shock rippled through the inmate as his attack failed. The corpse he had mocked now stood again, unyielding. From a distant rooftop, Sung Suho watched with calm certainty. The shadow's reaction proved it. Even in death, the man still wanted to protect her. Suho granted him strength to do exactly that. Power surged into the shadow soldier as Suho equipped him with relics. A Naga warrior belt that sharpened agility and reinforced defense, sturdy shoulder guards that bolstered endurance, and finally a rare Naga blade, a weapon built to tear through enemy protection and amplify each strike. A faint violet glow lit the soldier's eyes as the power took hold. Then it moved. With predatory speed, the Shadow Warrior charged forward, cutting through the inmates like a storm of blades. Screams vanished almost as quickly as they began, replaced only by the quiet patter of blood hitting the ground. Suho descended from his vantage point. He raised his hand once more, letting darkness spill across the fallen bodies. Their shadows broke free, reshaping into new soldiers who knelt before him in silent obedience. His command was simple: search the city and hunt down every criminal still hiding in the chaos. At his side, Baru buzzed with excitement, delighted to see the army growing with every battle. Suho acknowledged it quietly. Clearing the city would not take long at this pace. Baru admired the sight openly, calling it the true authority of the Shadow Monarch, while Suho allowed a faint smile. He had once doubted this ability. Now, its true value was impossible to ignore. His gaze softened as he watched the woman and the resurrected guardian share one final moment, a farewell granted by borrowed time. When Baru asked if Suho intended to let the shadow remain, Suho agreed. The soldier would fade eventually, but at the very least, it deserved a final goodbye. Baru chuckled, remarking on how different Suho seemed from the ruthless figure who had just overwhelmed the criminals. Suho didn't answer immediately, because something changed. His body stiffened as he felt dozens of connections in his shadow network snap all at once, wiped out in an instant. His voice hardened as he recognized what that meant. A large number of his soldiers had just been destroyed. Baru fell silent, his earlier excitement dissolving into grim focus. If that was true, then the force responsible for this riot had finally revealed itself, and the real mastermind was now somewhere ahead. Across the battlefield, a bunch of fallen shadows littered the ground. Kang Taesik moved among them like a phantom, his dagger flashing as he sliced through each one with ruthless precision. His expression was cold, his focus unwavering. Behind him, Hwang Dong-suk surveyed the scene with growing suspicion. The creatures didn't resemble any monsters he had seen before, and the way they dissolved into darkness unsettled him. Irritation quickly replaced curiosity as he barked at Taesik to hurry and clean everything up. Taesik's reply was sharp. If they had left when he suggested, none of this chaos would have reached them. He spoke with arrogance, confident that the star fragment he consumed had pushed him beyond the strength of an ordinary A-rank hunter. But then everything changed. The remaining shadows stopped moving. Instead of attacking, they silently lowered themselves, kneeling like knights bowing to their sovereign. Taesik froze, momentarily speechless. A familiar presence stepped from the darkness. Baru's wings twitched with excitement as Sung Suho emerged, his gaze fixed ahead with chilling clarity. The criminals instantly realized he was the summoner guiding these black soldiers. Dong-suk scoffed at first, mocking Suho, but his confidence wavered when Suho questioned him about the mysterious apostles connected to Lee Min-sung. While pretending to chat casually, Dong-suk signaled Taesik to strike. In their minds, summoners were vulnerable once separated from their shadows. Taesik blurred forward, lethal and silent, but Suho was already gone. By the time Taesik registered what happened, Suho stood directly in front of Dong-suk, his hand resting heavily on the man's shoulder. His violet eyes hardened as he demanded to know where the star fragments came from and why the city had been thrown into chaos. Under that crushing pressure, Dong-suk's bravado shattered. Suho's grip forced him to his knees, pain tearing through his body as the ground cracked beneath him. Only then did he confess. The fragments came from his brother, and the destruction was nothing more than entertainment to him. Rage flickered across Suho's expression. So many lives ruined simply because someone felt like watching them suffer. Desperate, Dong-suk called out to Taesik for help, but Taesik hesitated. The more he observed, the clearer it became. Suho wasn't someone to provoke. Survival meant running, even if it meant abandoning the man he worked for. Before he could move, something invaded his mind. A voice, overwhelming, cold, and ancient, commanded him from afar. Gold light crawled across his body, overriding his will entirely. The apostle of Iterum had seized control. Taesik vanished into stealth and charge. Suho sensed the killing intent at the last second and stepped aside. The redirected strike tore through Dong-suk instead. Invisible blades shredded him where he stood. His body collapsed, lifeless, as blood seeped dramatically across the broken pavement. Suho didn't react emotionally. Instead, he studied the distortion in the air with sharp focus. Baru recognized the power instantly. The apostle had not only intervened, he was testing Suho deliberately. Suho's expression darkened. Someone infused with star fragments was now being puppeted like a weapon. And whoever controlled that power was still watching, somewhere far above the city. Standing over Dong-suk's corpse, Suho silently took in the scene. His shadows knelt beside him, awaiting orders, while the presence of Taisik vanished completely into the night. Kang Taisik melted into the darkness, hidden completely by his camouflage. Somewhere beyond sight, a cruel smile tugged at his lips. Grass bent and dirt shifted as Taisik moved at impossible speed, too fast for the eye to follow. Rather than strike Suho directly, he targeted the shadows instead. His daggers flashed through the air, unseen, merciless, carving down Suho's soldiers before they could respond. Each shadow collapsed and dissolved, returning to darkness. Only when they were gone did Taisik shift his attention back to Suho, unleashing a barrage of invisible slashes. The air itself seemed to split. Suho didn't panic. He stood firm, listening, letting instinct guide him. His senses focused on the faintest clues, the whisper of footsteps, the slight distortion in the breeze, the echo of breath hidden in the night. So this is camouflage, the trademark of assassin-class hunters, he thought. He could track Taisik just enough to avoid the strikes. But landing a counterattack was another matter entirely. High above the city, inside a quiet aircraft, the Apostle of Iterum opened one golden eye. His gaze stretched beyond the clouds, observing the fight below with chilling composure. Taisik, boosted by the star fragment, now fought at the very peak of A-rank power. In the Apostle's judgment, Suho shouldn't have stood a chance. Then a voice reached him. Suho spoke to him calmly, deliberately. He explained that until now he had remained hidden out of caution. But something didn't add up. If the invader from beyond was truly as powerful as rumored, why manipulate others instead of acting alone? Suho's conclusion was simple and terrifyingly accurate. The apostle was preparing, learning, evolving, just like Suho. The apostle's expression darkened. On the ground, shadows surged around Suho as he raised his hand. His voice carried across the battlefield. No fear, only resolve. He called the hidden enemy out, challenging the one watching from afar. The moment he moved, Taisik faltered. Suho's shadows lunged toward the empty air. Panic flickered across Taisik's eyes as he realized the truth. His camouflage shattered. He barely had time to gasp before the final strike drove through him. The apostle staggered inside the aircraft, clutching his eye as Lim Tai-ju called out in concern, while the apostle dismissed it calmly. But behind the mask, a twisted smile surfaced. Sung Suho was becoming fascinating. Back on the battlefield, Suho stood between the bodies of Hwang Dong-suk and Kang Taisik. He summoned them. Darkness rose beneath the corpses, drawing them into the abyss. Their twisted forms emerged moments later. Not living, not dead, forever bound to Suho's will. He regarded them with cool detachment, reminding them of the destruction their arrogance had caused, then condemned them to serve as punishment. As shadow creations surged, the night rippled with power. Something else formed among the darkness. The shadows condensed, hardening into solid objects. First came armor, swindler's armor, rare grade built for endurance and protection. Then a faintly glowing ring, killer's ring, heroic grade, carrying the ability to cloak its wearer entirely. System messages continued cascading before Suho's eyes. Shadow item creation had advanced. Heroic grade crafting unlocked. Unique names could now be bestowed, allowing the items themselves to grow. He chose the ring. Light flared as he imbued the new name. The system confirmed it. A leveling item, bound solely to its first bearer, capable of sharing its soldier form stats with its master. The ring pulsed on Suho's hand, alive with power. A faint smile crossed his lips. If he could continue pushing past heroic grade, he would climb faster than ever. Faster than anyone expected. and step by step, he would close the distance to the man standing at the very top, his father. A violent storm of power tore through another corner of the city. One of Suho's shadow soldiers lunged forward and was instantly ripped apart by a massive, clawed hand. Baek Yunho stood amid the destruction. One after another, Suho's soldiers vanished beneath his relentless strikes. Back on Suho's side, his expression tightened. He felt the links to his shadows snapping one by one. Beru's voice rang in his mind, urgent and sharp. The ant general sensed danger. Something powerful was heading straight for them. Suho steadied himself, jaw clenched. Whatever it was close. A thunderous blast suddenly erupted through the ruins. A building wall collapsed outward. Dust flooded the air. Stones rained down. Suho lifted his arm to shield his face, while debris bounced off Beru's armored head with a hollow crack. From the thick haze, a towering silhouette emerged. Each step heavy, controlled, and imposterizing. Baek Yunho appeared, dragging the crushed remains of a fallen shadow as if it weighed nothing. His transformed body rippled with muscle and striped fur. His voice carried across the ruined street. He spoke of rushing here after seeing the black pillar. Then his gaze locked on Suho, suspicion hardening his expression. Suho muttered under his breath, confused as well. Why would something like this be here? But Baek corrected him coldly. He wasn't a monster. He was Baek Yunho, guildmaster of the White Tiger Guild. Recognition flickered in Suho's eyes. White Tiger's strongest hunter, the S rank known for transformation. Baek stepped forward, claws gleaming. His senses told him one thing. Suho reeked of blood. He demanded to know who, or what, he truly was. Suho didn't flinch. He answered calmly. He was a hunter, one here to save lives. When Baek demanded his name, Suho spoke without hesitation. Sung Suho, and he knew the association was after him. He also knew he was innocent. Baek's laughter rumbled out, so the wanted hunter was bold enough to admit it openly. He spoke of star powder, and the guild member nearly destroyed because of it. In an instant, Baek's claws hovered at Suho's throat. If Suho was truly innocent, how would he prove it? Suho brushed the claws aside, his tone unwavering. There wasn't time for interrogation. People were dying, and having an S rank here was something he couldn't afford to waste. Baek blinked, momentarily thrown off by the response. Suho continued, firm, steady. Saving people came first. Hesitation meant death. Those words struck something deep inside Baek. A memory surfaced. The past, when he wore a firefighter's uniform. Beside him stood Sung Il-hwan, Suho's grandfather. Il-hwan's voice echoed in his mind. Make the necessary choice first, then find a way to make it the right one. That is the duty of those who rescue others. The recognition struck Baek Yunho like a bolt. His expression softened, and his voice shook with surprise. That name, now it made sense. Without thinking, he grabbed Suho's shoulders, a rare excitement lighting his face. This was the grandson that Sung Il-hwan had always spoken so proudly about. The feral aura faded from Baek's body as he returned to human form, a sincere smile replacing his earlier suspicion. He finally understood. So Suho was Il-hwan's grandson. Elsewhere, smoke curled up from shattered buildings while alarms echoed through the city. On a bridge, two soldiers guarded the checkpoint, rifles trembling in their hands. One glanced toward the distant flames. He wondered aloud whether they could really stop rampaging monsters when even bullets barely scratched them. Their squad leader stared forward in silence, then sighed heavily. Orders were orders. Whether possible or not, they had to act. The younger soldier swallowed nervously. Something about the city felt wrong, like the atmosphere itself had turned hostile. The leader agreed quietly. The scene shifted back to Baek Yunho. Now fully transformed again, he tore through the streets like a living storm, claws flashing, muscles surging. Escaped inmates fell in his wake, each strike shaking the ground. At his side, Sung Suho advanced with calm precision. Every move was measured, efficient, lethal. Their combined presence flooded the city with crushing pressure. They weren't simply fighting. They were purging the disaster spreading through the streets. Baek glanced sideways and smirked. For a summoner, Suho carried strength beyond expectation. strength worthy of Il Huan's name. Suho remembered then. Beck had once worked under his grandfather in their firefighting days. The thought made him smile faintly. Beck, meanwhile, laughed heartily and told Suho to just call him uncle. They pressed forward, clearing neighborhoods one after another. Still, Suho voiced concern. With this much noise, wouldn't the criminals simply hide? Beck's aura surged, rattling windows. His answer was firm. Hunters didn't exist simply to chase villains. They existed to save civilians. Fear would pin the criminals down, and that hesitation would keep people alive. Suho finally nodded. This, he realized, was what leadership truly looked like. The burden of protecting an entire city. Then Beck casually ruined the seriousness of the moment. He asked if Suho had a girlfriend. Suho blinked, embarrassed, and shook his head. Beck grinned mischievously. Good, his daughter was single. Suho could only stare in speechless shock. A helicopter cut across the sky overhead. Inside, S-rank hunters surveyed the burning city below. The association's chairman watched carefully, phone pressed to his ear. On the ground, Beck Miho signaled from a rooftop, gathering civilians to safety. The chairman praised her. Hunters and citizens alike had been successfully evacuated. But then his eyes narrowed. Dark figures moved alongside the criminals below. Were those monsters? Miho hesitated, unable to fully identify them. Before the chairman could decide, Lim Tae-gyu rose from his seat. If those shapes were enemies, he would simply eliminate them. The chairman tried to stop him, but Lim had already stepped into the rushing wind. He plunged from the helicopter, eyes closed, letting the roar fade into eerie quiet. When they finally opened, they gleamed with deadly focus. A skill activated. Across the city, faint red markers appeared, painted over rooftops, alleys, and rubble. Every shadow soldier within range was locked into his sights. He drew his bow. The string trembled under immense force, then snapped forward. A rain of arrows divided mid-flight, curving unnaturally, each one hunting its chosen target. From below, it looked like a coordinated missile strike. Shadow soldiers were pinned instantly. One by one, they burst apart, their forms dissolving into light. Suho stopped and stared upward, recognizing the attack. Beck Yunho smirked. Reinforcements had arrived. With association hunters involved, the villains wouldn't be rampaging much longer. Relief washed through Suho, but it lasted only a breath. Something felt wrong. Lim Tae-gyu's gaze shifted and locked onto Suho. The calm precision in his eyes warped into something darker. Grief and fury twisted together, turning his focus into a weapon. At last he had found the one he blamed, and memories flooded Lim's thoughts. The funeral, the guilt he could never bury. In his mind there was only one truth. If star powder had never spread, Lee Min-song would still be alive. The bowstring trembled. Lim released. The arrow ripped through the air faster than sound. Suho's instinct screamed. He barely had time to raise his guard. The question flashing through his thoughts. Why is he aiming at me? Baek Yunho caught the arrow with his bare hand, snapping it apart as if it were nothing. His expression hardened as he lifted his gaze toward the sky. Lim dropped from above, landing with a shockwave that cracked the rooftop beneath him, aura raging like a storm as he faced them. He demanded answers. Why was Beck standing beside a criminal? Beck stayed calm. He tried to slow the situation, insisting there had been a misunderstanding. But Lim wouldn't listen. To him, Suho had fled summons and ignored orders. That alone made him guilty. A villain, he declared. Beck's expression turned cold. Suho had been saving civilians non-stop. How could that be villainy? He spoke firmly, but the argument only fueled Lim's anger. Another arrow sliced the air, skimming Beck's cheek. Lim's rage deepened. If Beck insisted on defending Suho, then he demanded to know exactly what connection they shared. The pressure in the air thickened. Realizing words wouldn't be enough, Beck exhaled slowly and transformed fully, and his aura exploded outward. The street trembled beneath the power of his beast form. If Lim refused to calm down, Beck would stop him by force. The atmosphere turned suffocating. Two S-rank hunters squared off, energy clashing unseen but violent enough to rattle the ruins around them. Suho stood frozen between them, overwhelmed. If either of them lost control, entire districts would be wiped out. And then, Flames burst to life. A towering ring of fire rose around them, sealing the battlefield. Figures stepped through the blaze. Choi Jong-in, Chairman Woo Jin-chul, Baek Mi-ho. Even the silent apostle lingered in the shadows. Choi's voice cut across the chaos, sharp and commanding. Everyone was to stand down. Baek's shoulders eased. At last there was a chance to explain. He spoke honestly. Suho was the grandson of Sung Il-hwan, the man who had once saved his life. Baek would stake his reputation on Suho's innocence. Silence followed. Miho's response was icy. Family connection alone wasn't proof. Choi agreed. A fugitive was still a fugitive. Lim Taegyu's fury only burned hotter. He accused Baek openly, warning him not to throw away his honor for sentiment. His killing intent surged again. Baek didn't budge. He still urged discussion. And finally, Woo Jin-chul stepped forward. His authority washed over the group like a weight. He declared that they would talk first. The others protested, stunned, but the chairman didn't waver. His attention settled directly on Suho. Calm, absolute, demanding truth. Could Suho prove his innocence? The question hung in the scorching air, every gaze fixed on him as the fire crackled around the circle. Woo Jin-chul fell silent, lost in thought. A distant memory had surfaced, one he had not expected to return. In that moment, Jin-chul found himself wondering why the memories of his past life had come back at all. A chilling possibility crept in. Perhaps Sung Jin-woo had foreseen this long ago, and had prepared them for the day he would no longer be here. The memory faded, and reality crashed back in. The world was inching toward disaster. The great cataclysm, the war that would soon engulf humanity. And somewhere at the center of it all stood Suho, a young hunter who would eventually have to fight alone. Jin-chul steadied himself and faced him directly, his voice carrying the weight of authority. He demanded that Suho prove his innocence. Suho hesitated, then answered with conviction that he could. But before he could explain, Choi Jong-in stepped in, his tone sharp and unforgiving. This wasn't the time or place, he argued. Suho had fled the association's summons. He had been at every site tied to the mysterious star powder. He had joined raids while hiding the truth. And worst of all, he had been present when Lee Min-seong died. Lim Taegyu's anger erupted the moment the name was spoken. To him, the verdict was already sealed. Suho needed to be arrested immediately. Even Woo Jin-chul felt the pressure. By every rule and every report, arresting Suho was the correct choice. And yet he couldn't let go of one thought. If Suho had done all this, surely there was a reason. Even if it cost him his reputation, Woo Jin-chul decided he would stand beside him. He declared that Suho had reached the disaster site before anyone else and had risked his life to save civilians. Calling him a criminal now would be unjust. Choi Jong-in studied the chairman in disbelief. Lim Taegyu's rage was already at its peak, and yet Woo Jin-chul insisted on protecting Suho. Before the argument could escalate further, Suho finally spoke. There was no need for everyone to fight, he said. His aura erupted like a storm, shadows curling around him. He would prove his innocence himself, even if the method was ruthless. Jin-chul tried to stop him, but Lim Taegyu was already moving. His bow snapped, and an arrow drilled straight into Suho's shoulder. Blood flowed, yet Suho didn't move an inch. He simply stood there, and the shadow beneath Taegyu suddenly crawled upward. In an instant, Suho's shadow skill pierced into him. Taegyu collapsed as a surge of long-buried memories ripped through his mind. Battles, comrades, the life he had once lived and forgotten. Choi Jong-in and Baek Mi-ho rushed forward, stunned. Suho staggered, gripping his wound, but there was no time to rest. If the hunters who once fought alongside his father remembered their past lives, then they would understand. And the one who needed to awaken most was Choi Jong-in. Suho leapt forward, shadows bursting around him. Choi reacted instantly, conjuring a storm of blazing fire. The vortex split the street in two, but Suho punched straight through it, his shadows wrapping around him like armor. Just as he closed the distance, two attacks struck him at once. Miho's kick and Park Do-jin's blow. Suho crashed into the ground, blood scattering across the stone. Yet even through the pain, he smiled faintly. He had done it. A faint shadow key pulsed at Choi Jong-in's chest, and the torrent of memories slammed into him too. He dropped to one knee, overwhelmed. Lim Tae-gyu trembled, tears in his eyes, trying to understand what he had just remembered. Choi could barely speak, shaken to his core. They turned towards Suho, bleeding, exhausted, but still standing. He told them calmly that what they had seen came from before the reset, from a world that had already been rewound once, so peace could exist at all. The moment the dots connected, Choi Jong-in understood. This was tied to Sung Jin-woo. Suho nodded. His father had carried the fate of the world entirely on his own. And even now, somewhere beyond Earth, he was still fighting a war no one else could see. That was why Suho fought the Iterum invaders in silence, to bear even a fraction of that burden. Lim Tai-jae's jaw tightened, brows furrowed. Something about Suho's words felt strange, almost absurd, but still, there was a tug of truth he couldn't ignore. Choi Jong-in's expression darkened as he turned inward, considering the memories that had returned. If they were real, then maybe Suho's claims weren't far-fetched at all. Woo Jin-chul stepped forward, his voice cutting through the tension with absolute authority. Every word Sung Suho spoke was true. He too had regained memories of his past life, and it was because of those memories that he had been able to prepare for the coming catastrophe. His gaze settled on Suho. We should hear him out first. The room grew heavy as Suho began to speak. He shared everything he knew, the existence of the outer gods, the Iterum lurking beyond, the apostle walking among them, and the star powder sown to destabilize the world. Choi and Lim listened in disbelief, their eyes widening. Choi broke first. Most of the incidents we faced, they were connected to the Iterum. Lim's fist clenched as the realization hit. Then Lee Min-sung's death. It was all because of this. Woo Jin-chul turned to Suho, his voice grave. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Suho uncorked a small recovery potion, the liquid faintly glowing as he drank. If the apostle had discovered me before I was ready, he explained, I would have become my father's weakness. I had to grow strong first. Lim and Choi exchanged a glance, a dawning understanding crossing their faces. Lim spoke carefully. Then you must also be a hunter who can grow stronger, like Sung Jin-woo. Suho nodded briefly. Choi suddenly grabbed Suho's hand, curiosity flashing in his eyes. Did you know that Hunter Cha Hyen once belonged to the Hunters Guild? Suho's eyes widened. You mean, my mother, she was a hunter too. His face lit up with admiration. At the edge of the gathering, the apostle's golden eyes narrowed. The hunters were beginning to understand Suho's mission, and worse, they were starting to rally together. He frowned. Bold move, Sung Suho. Meanwhile, Baek Yun-ho and Mi-ho watched from the side. Baek muttered to himself, scratching his head. So the misunderstanding is cleared, but honestly, I still don't fully get what's happening here. Suho turned calmly to him. It's understandable. Without context, it would be confusing. That's why I'll verify the memories of the past world. The apostle's expression darkened instantly. If Suho continued, he could be exposed. But Suho, standing resolute in the center, allowed a faint smile. It's time we all recover the memories of the previous world, he said, lifting the shadow dungeon key. Its surface shimmered with a faint black glow. Baek raised an eyebrow, chuckling low. Memories of the previous world, huh? Now that's interesting. Mi-ho, still wary, stepped between her father and Suho. Father, don't you think this could be dangerous? Baek ignored her, placing a hand over Suho's as the key activated. Shadows erupted outward, wrapping around both of them. The air grew heavy, as if the world itself were holding its breath. Every hunter froze, eyes locked on the scene. Father! Mi-ho shouted, panic in her voice. The apostle watched silently, golden eyes narrowing. When the ritual ended, Suho lowered the key. Baek's body trembled as the flood of memories returned. Tears streamed down his face, but a bittersweet smile lingered on his lips. Lim Tae-gyu and Choi Jong-in observed silently, feeling the truth in the display. Mi-ho's shock mirrored her father's intensity, though she gradually stepped forward, resolute. Then please, do it for me too, she whispered. The apostle's gaze sharpened. If the world had truly been reset, the key would not respond to him. Any attempt would reveal his nature. Suho lifted the key once more. Seconds passed. She rubbed her forehead, confused. Are you sure this works? I don't feel anything. Baru emerged from the shadows, his mandibles clicking as he spoke. Young monarch, some may not recall their past at all, just like this one. Miho glanced at him dismissively. What is this weak-looking insect? Baru's compound eyes flared. Weak. You dare call me that, I'll tear you apart where you stand. Suho raised a hand calmly. Finish your explanation, Baru. The ant general relaxed slightly, still bristling. He explained that the previous world had existed 20 years ago, when mana was still prevalent. Differences in the present were natural. Miho's eyes widened. I wasn't born then. Suho's gaze fell on the shadow key. He had used it on Park Do-jin, the apostle in disguise, and nothing had happened. The apostle smirked. It seems I cannot recall memories either. Miho's voice cracked. Does that mean I truly didn't exist in the previous world? Beck tried to calm her, but father-daughter bickering erupted naturally. Wu Jinchul approached Suho. Don't you think this is remarkable, he said. This is the peace hunter Sung Jin-woo chose. Lives that were erased before now exist. Isn't that something to be grateful for? Suho turned to the assembled hunters. He understood. This was his father's wish, a world where lost lives could exist again. Suho's voice rose, steady and resolute. Everyone, if we allow the outer gods to invade, this world will surely be destroyed. I ask for your strength. Stand with me. Days later, the nation finally heard the official report. The prison break that had thrown the country into chaos was largely contained. Less than 1% of escapees remained unaccounted for. News anchors detailed the swift actions of the Hunter Association, emphasizing the heroics of one particular hunter. Eyewitnesses confirmed that a black, human-shaped figure had drastically reduced casualties. Cameras captured the moment, and reports clarified that the figure was not a monster, but a hunter skill wielded by E-rank hunter Sung Suho, who had arrived first to assist civilians. Far away, a man named Hwang Dong-soo watched the broadcast with growing fury. His jaw clenched as the word hero echoed through the television speakers. Bloodlust burned in his eyes. Sung Suho, I'm coming for you, he muttered through gritted teeth. At the Hunter Association, Suho stared at the television in disbelief. What kind of nonsense is this? He asked, tense. Wu Jinchul responded calmly, his tone authoritative. We coordinated this ahead of time. Reawakenings are rare, but not impossible. The public will accept it. Choi Jung-in, weary and frustrated, adjusted his glasses. I no longer wish to hide, he said softly. He turned to Suho with a serious expression. Surely you don't intend to publicly declare yourself as a growth hunter. An existence that defies natural law will invite chaos. People will judge you by their fears. Irregulars are always resented. Suho's jaw tightened, his expression tense. Yet he listened carefully. Choi continued, his voice sharp and precise. You said you had 3 goals. First, your own growth, to be strong enough to fight alongside your father. Second, to unite hunters capable of resisting the outer gods in the war to come. And third, his voice dropped, to defeat the apostle of the Iterum who walks among us. Suho clenched his fist, determination blazing in his eyes. Once these objectives are achieved, I will go to aid my father, who even now fights the forces of outer space alone. Choi set down his tea carefully, his gaze focused. If you intend to rally the world's power against the Iterum, passion alone will not suffice. You must consider your image, how to influence hearts, and steer people in your direction. Every decision matters. Suho paused, the weight of the advice sinking in. Then he raised his head, resolve returning. For you to give me such guidance? Does that mean you intend to help me? Before Choi could answer, Baek Yun-ho slammed his hand on the table, the sound like thunder. Of course, he said firmly. You are the grandson of Captain Sung Il-won and the son of Sung Jin-woo, the hope of humanity. But more than titles, your actions move me. From today, the White Tiger Guild stands with you. Choi adjusted his glasses, his expression cooling. Even Jin Woo struggled against the Atarim. I cannot know how much I can help, but I refuse to watch Earth be destroyed. You have the Hunters Guild support as well, Wu Jinchul observed silently, clenching his fists. With Beck and Choi persuaded, only Lim Taeju of the Reaper Guild remained. Lim sat with arms crossed, his face unreadable. Tell me plainly, he said coldly. Was it truly you who killed Lee Min-sung? Beck's temper flared. Why bring that up again, he snapped. Suho raised his hand, steadying the tension. I killed him, he admitted firmly. Lim's gaze sharpened. Then tell me, what exactly happened to Lee Min-sung at that time? Suho's tone remained low but unwavering. He was possessed by the apostle of the Atarim. Lim pressed further, suspicion in his voice. And why did you approach him? I confirmed he was cooperating with the Atarim, Suho explained. I sought information from him. And why was he cooperating, Lim asked. Suho shook his head slightly. That I do not know. Lim lowered his eyes, thoughts heavy. I already know you bear no fault, Suho. Then why am I even asking these questions? Suho's voice broke the silence. Could it be, Hunter Lim, that what you truly want is to know his final moments? Lim froze, caught off guard. Suho continued quietly. At the very end, Lee Min-sung was smiling. Lim's expression twisted in disbelief. Smiling. Yes, Suho replied, gaze steady. I still don't know what that smile meant, whether exhilaration or the release of letting go. To me, it felt bitter. But one thing was clear. He never lost himself, not even until the very end. He left a deep impression on me. Lim exhaled, a long, heavy sigh escaping. Lee Min-sung, ever the same selfish egotist. The Grim Reaper Guild will also cooperate with you, Suho. Wu Jinchul allowed a faint smile. Suho had secured the cooperation of the three major guilds, not through lineage alone, but through his sincerity and actions. Suho's chest tightened as he straightened. Memories of the past battles, of hunters united under Sung Jin Woo, stirred within him. He cleared his throat, turning to address the room with determination. Allow me to explain the plan moving forward, the very first step. But before he could finish, Wu Jinchul's face went pale. Shock flashed across his eyes. Baek Yun-ho's jaw dropped, Lim Tae-ju stiffened, and even Choi Jung-in faltered. In his mind, Wu Jinchul thought with pounding heart, Hunter Sung Jin Woo's son. Perhaps Suho truly will bring a storm of blood within the Hunter Association itself. In the depths of the Shadow Dungeon, Suho's body trembled under the relentless strain of his training. Sweat drenched him as he pushed against the immense weight bearing down on his shoulders. Amit loomed behind him, his presence like a mountain made flesh, immovable and crushing. As Suho counted aloud, 100. His legs quaked violently, finally surrendering to the exhaustion. He roared, the sound a mixture of strain and sheer willpower, before collapsing heavily onto the cold dungeon floor. A system notification blinked before his eyes. Daily quest completed, immediately followed by another. Reward granted. Completely spent, Suho lay gasping, sweat pooling beneath him. Essel and Gray rushed to his side, concern etched across their faces. Amit, tall and imposing, remained silent, his voice betraying only a hint of pride. At first you struggled to handle even the basics, Amit said, his tone softening slightly. Now, you can complete the exercises on your own. Suho forced himself upright, opening his system shop with trembling hands. Honestly, he admitted, breath ragged, my body feels heavy and restless if I skip this training. He downed a healing potion in one gulp, the cool liquid easing the burn in his muscles, and gave Amit a tired but genuine smile. Good work, Amit. Essel watched silently, her crimson eyes narrowing. The young monarch has changed so much, she thought, not just in body or mana, but in the way he carried himself, echoing the path his father once walked. Fully recovered, Suho rolled his shoulders, tension melting away. A grin tugged at his lips as he stood. I've got things to do outside. See you all. Essel and Gray blinked in surprise. Leaving already, Essel asked, disappointment in her tone. Suho's smile remained steady. From now on, I'll be busier than ever. I plan to clear a field-type dungeon today. He recalled the meeting with S-rank hunters and the chairman. I spoke with the higher-ups at the Hunter Association. To prevent more star powder factories from appearing, I requested their cooperation in clearing field-type dungeons across Korea. And they said other guilds would object. But I made conditions and, in exchange, they promised cooperation. With a swirl of shadows, he opened a dungeon gate, the black portal expanding beside him. Now I'll do everything I can to fulfill that condition, he said with a small wave before stepping through. Essel leaned forward eagerly. Then let me help too. You'll call us, right? Suho's final words cut her hopes short. I'll call when I need help. The gate closed behind him, leaving Amit, Essel, and Gray staring at the empty space, frozen in shock. At the D-rank field dungeon, Miho's voice sliced through the tense air. What are our guild masters thinking? Handing over ownership of every field dungeon to a single hunter, do they understand the impact on guild earnings? Her glare sharpened. And who is this Sung Suho anyway? He didn't even request A-rank or S-rank help. He only dragged us along to fill spots. Sung Jahoon smirked faintly, curiosity gleaming in his eyes. Still, I can't help but be intrigued. A hunter who can strike, mine, and carry all on his own? Aren't you even a little curious? Miho clicked her tongue, irritated. Shh. Sounds like exaggeration. But inwardly she seethed. Even her father believed these stories from the past world. How could he accept them so easily? Jahoon's thoughts were quieter, sharper. A hunter who can level up, huh? Let's see if Guildmaster Choi Dong-in was telling the truth. The apostle observed from a distance, his golden eyes narrowing. His silence carried a weight heavier than any words. Suddenly the ground trembled, a thunderous quake echoing across the mountainside. Dust erupted in the distance. Miho's eyes widened. Could it be? Jahoon's expression mirrored hers, incredulous. It hasn't even been an hour since he entered. Moments later, their doubts were shattered. From the dungeon entrance emerged Suho, calm and steady, his armor gleaming faintly in the sunlight. Behind him, shadow soldiers marched, an oppressive army born from darkness. Suho grinned, wiping the sweat from his brow. Looks like I kept you waiting. He spoke casually, as if he'd only finished a morning workout, instead of clearing an entire dungeon solo. Took down the boss quickly, but mining the essence stones slowed me down. He glanced at the group, the smile widening. I want to hit 3 more locations today. Shall we move on to the next field dungeon? Miho and Jahoon stared, hearts pounding, unable to comprehend his speed and skill. Even for a D-rank dungeon, he had cleared it in under an hour. Their thoughts screamed in unison. From the shadows, the apostle watched silently, lips pressed thin. Suho's growth, combined with the rallying support of the guilds, this could spiral out of my control, he realized. The scene shifted to a conference room where the S-rank hunters had gathered alongside Chairman Wu Jinchul. His voice remained calm, but worry lingered beneath the surface. Entrusting all field-type dungeons to a single person, is that truly the right decision? Choi Jong-in asked, folding his hands thoughtfully. Those sites are rich sources of mana stones and materials from magical beasts, he added, concern etching his features. Consider the resources we're giving up. Baek Yoon-ho broke the tension with a warm, confident laugh. He clapped a hand on Choi's shoulder. Choi, you're the embodiment of greed, he said half-jokingly, before turning serious. But if the Iterum destroy this world, what use are stones or money? Everything loses value if the world burns. Choi exchanged a glance with Lim Tae-ju, the Grim Reaper Guildmaster. Lim's expression remained cold, his voice sharp as a blade. Those field-type dungeons were where the star powder factories were discovered. I will do whatever it takes to eliminate that substance. The same one that left Lee Min-sung like that. Choi's mind shifted to a different fear. Memories of the colossal alien threats he had faced before. What if the enemies beyond this world are on a similar scale? Could we even stand against such forces? Even Baek lowered his head, recalling the overwhelming powers of those past threats. Chairman Wu Jinchul cut through the unease with a firm, authoritative tone. You're worrying too much. This isn't something we can avoid forever. Suho can handle it. He allowed the pause to linger, then addressed the practical challenge. The plan will face fierce opposition from guilds dependent on field dungeon profits. Convincing hunters like Miho and Park Dojin, those without memories of the previous world, won't be simple. They won't naturally believe in invasion from beyond the stars. Suho's violet eyes narrowed as he met the chairman's. Then how do we persuade them? He asked, his voice taut with urgency. Wu Jinchul exhaled slowly, weighing his words. There's one thing that tends to sway people, he began, naming names with the precision of listing global powerhouses. Thomas Andre of the USA, Lu Jigang of China, Siddharth Bhukshan of India, hunters whose personal power rivals entire nations. People rally around figures like that. The implication was clear. If Suho could achieve recognition on a national level, his influence would be undeniable. Not merely moral, but magnetic. Suho absorbed the weight of the idea, resolve brightening his expression. The scale is enormous, but I am ready. I'll do it, he said, his voice steady and unshakable. In 1 month, I'll be strong enough to persuade any hunter I need to. I'll become a force they cannot ignore. Wu Jinchul shifted the tone back to business, steering the room away from grand declarations. For now, focus on the battles ahead. He opened the heavy door leading into the wider assembly hall. Choi Jong-in, Lim Tae-ju, and Baek Yun-ho followed him. Beyond the door, representatives from regional guilds waited. The Azure Cloud Guild of the Yangseo region, Wang Guild of Yandang County, Daesuns from Hoseo region, and members of the Daechung Guild among them. The hall hummed with tense energy as stakeholders weighed risk against reward. Wu Jinchul moved through the crowd, his thoughts quiet but resolute. We have to do this, for Suho's growth and for the world that depends on it. The decision was made. The work was about to begin. Suho's path of growth continued, relentless and unyielding, preparing him for the storm yet to come. The episode ends here. That wraps up chapters 48 to 56 of the Solo Leveling Ragnarok series. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.